we're faced with the stupidest things all the time, and we bail on God. Like people say, like we're scared we might lose friends if we show our faith in our God. We're scared people will think of us wrong if we don't share our faith in God. They're faced with death and they still do it. So if they can overcome death and still believe in God, even when death is knocking on the door, why can't we do it if maybe people might look at us a little bit different?
All right. Are you guys ready to continue worshiping tonight through the Word? Why don't you all give it up for Mr. Hayden Thoman.
Thank you, Cody. Hi, I'm Hayden, if you didn't know that. Hi. All you beautiful people, especially you, Nick. So tonight, I hope you get something out of this. I spent a lot of time on it, so if you don't tell me because that'll hurt my feelings. So first tonight we're gonna be talking in the book of Daniel, mainly Daniel 3, but first we're gonna talk a little bit about Daniel 2. So I didn't put it all up there because that's a lot and I'm on a time schedule. So in Daniel 2, what happens is there's this guy named Daniel. There's also this guy named King Nebuchadnezzar. And then King Nebuchadnezzar has this dream of this big statue. And he goes to all the wise men in the land and he says, hey, what's this dream mean? And none of them can tell him. And he gets really irritated. So he says, you know what? All you guys are gonna die. But then Daniel comes and saves the day and tells him what this dream of this statue means. So then we get into Daniel 3. And in Daniel 3, it says, King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. He then summons all the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officials to come to the dedication of the image he had set up. So all those names you saw, the satraps, prefects, those are all Latin and Greek terms for different political leaders like treasurers, princes, governors, all those good people. So I did some research because I was really curious. 1 cubit is 1.5 feet. So this statue is a pretty big statue. It's 90 feet tall, which is about as big as the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, if you've ever been there. So you know this is a big deal. King Nebuchadnezzar puts a lot of money into it. It's made of gold. Like, he's not messing around here. He wants this statue to be amazing. So then Daniel 3 says, so the satraps, prefects, governors, and advisors, and treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And they stood before it. Then they herald loudly proclaimed, nations and peoples of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lipe, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. So the big point in this is that our three main characters, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, from the very beginning of our story, knew the consequences of their actions. They knew that if they didn't fall down and worship this statue that Nebuchadnezzar set up, he will throw them into a burning fire. The big thing is they didn't care. They did it anyways, and we do this a lot in our lives. Like, I know if I don't do my homework, I'm going to get a 0, I'm going to fail algebra and fail the test, but you know what? I'm not going to do my homework anyways. But we also do it in good ways. Like, we get kicked out of a mall for praying for people during Momentum. What do we do next year? We go back and pray for more people. We know we might get kicked out of a mall again, but we don't care. We're going to do it anyways because we love God and we're going to share him with people. So, my bad. Daniel 3, 7 through 12, it's a lot. Basically what happens is some people snitch on our three characters, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Don't be a snitch, but they do it anyways. So we get into Daniel 13 through 15. It says, furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king. Nebuchadnezzar said to them, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made for you, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand? Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego replied to him, King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into a blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. So my first point is they had really cool names back then. I wish I could be named Shadrach, Meshach, or Abednego, not like Nick or Joe. Those names are basic and boring. I want a cool name. Number two, I said questioning God does not end well. Many times throughout the Bible and in other places, you see when people question God, bad things tend to happen. If you look at Exodus, the Pharaoh says, no, I'm not going to give you the Israelites to Moses, and what's God going to do about it? Then he gets hit with 10 plagues and his son dies. There's this company called White Star Line. They're the ones that made the Titanic, and the owner of that company said, not even God could sink this ship. We all know what happens next. Joe's just geeking, and I love it. The really big point that I actually really want you to pay attention to is they had a way out, and they did not take it. Our three characters, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they had an scapegoat. The king said, you know what? You messed up, but I'm going to give you a way out. If you fall down and praise this statue, the next time you hear the music, all is forgiven, you're good. But they don't care because that would require them to turn their backs on their God, and that's not what they're all about. That's not what they're going to do. They're going to stay strong in their faith, and they're not going to bow down to this statue no matter what the cost was. And even when faced with death, they supported their God. That's crazy because we're faced with the stupidest things all the time, and we bail on God. Like people say, like we're scared we might lose friends if we show our faith in our God. We're scared people will think of us wrong if we don't share our faith in God. They're faced with death and they still do it. So if they can overcome death and still believe in God, even when death is knocking on the door, why can't we do it if maybe people might look at us a little bit different? So then we get Daniel 3:19 through 27. Basically in this, in this, Nebuchadnezzar says, we're going to have you guys thrown into a furnace and we're going to heat it extra hot just because you're being annoying. So Daniel 28 through 30 says, then Nebuchadnezzar said, praise be to the God of, I skipped a lot. I didn't realize all right, so Nebuchadnezzar has his guards, they're like, hey, you're going to throw these guys in the furnace, we're going to heat it up extra hot. So they throw them in the furnace, they tie them to a pole, and all of a sudden the fire gets out of control and all the guards die. Nebuchadnezzar's like, hey, weren't there like people in there that are supposed to be dead now that like opposed me? And they're like, well, we saw 4 people in there because an angel came and saved our 3 characters. And they come out of the fire alive and they look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They're like, no burns. They're not dead, clearly. And they don't even smell of smoke. What's going on? Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are like, hey, my God saved us like I said he would. So then Nebuchadnezzar says, praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent an angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship a God except their own God. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces and their house be turned into piles of rubble. Seems kind of extreme to me, but you do you. For no other God can save in this way. The king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into the province of Babylon. That last part there, them being promoted, that's a huge deal. Because back then, Babylon was a major country in the world. It wasn't no Canada, it was America, all right? They took what they wanted, and they didn't care what anyone did because you don't mess with Babylon, all right? Babylon is the place. And our 3 characters changed it. What? Okay, my bad. It was an empire. Thanks, Luke. Making me look stupid up here. All right, so my big point for this was a nation was changed by 3 men's faith in God. This went from a nation, or shall I say empire for Luke, that when they heard the music, they would bow down to a statue. They praised an image of gold that the king has set up. But because 3 men decided to keep their faith in God and trust in their God, the entire nation was changed. They no longer bowed down to a statue. They bowed down to the God that we love. And I'm not saying that you should go like saying to people, hey, do you believe in God? If they say no, you chop them into pieces and break their house down. But, if three men can change an entire empire, the biggest empire, let alone, with just by showing their faith in God, what's stopping us from changing one person's life by showing our faith in God? What's stopping us from changing our school by showing our faith in God? What's stopping us from changing the York County by showing our faith in God? Just because we're one person doesn't mean we can't have a big impact on the world. Just like these three men had the big impact on the world, a big impact on this entire empire. And if they could trust in God with their lives, why can't we trust God with the little things in life? We tend to overthink a lot. It's just how we are. I know I am. I'm thinking about college. I'm thinking about all these things in life that I'm going to have to deal with. And I don't know what I'm going to do. But if these three guys could trust their lives, they knew they were going to die if they didn't do what the king said, but they did it anyways. If they could trust their lives in God, if they could trust that God will deliver them from death, why can't we trust him with money? Why can't we trust him with school? Why can't we trust him with all these tiny things in life that don't even matter? Because when we die, they're not going to be there. So that's my ministry mutiny. I hope you got something out of it, and I'll pray for you guys. Dear Lord, thank you for just giving me the words to speak tonight, and I just hope that everyone got something out of it. And I ask that when we're in our small groups, you will just allow us to really connect with each other and to just get good conversation going. In your name we pray, amen.
Wow, that was awesome. Give a hand for Hayden. That was an awesome word. Good job, bro. I'm very proud of you. That's really cool to see that the major impact that we can have as individuals and even in our schools and our communities. That's a really cool thing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have our ministry team come up. So those individuals will come up here. If you have anything that's going on in your life, you're struggling with anything, loss, addictions, you just need someone to talk to, you can come up and talk to these individuals and get help for whatever that is, and they'll speak into your lives. And we are going to transition into our small group time, so you can go now to find your small group leaders. If you don't know who that is, you can go back to the sound booth and talk to Cody Ray, and he will get you hooked up with that. Thank you, guys.